back to the Villa Filler podcast for the second time today. How are you doing, Dan Moisman?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Can't have to do this emotional introduction all over again. But yeah, yesterday was tough, wasn't it?
It was
mate?
tough.
Yeah.
It was so tough that I forgot to press record.
Yeah,
on
it's
the
still
equipment.
scarred. It's still scarred. Cleaning shoes one day, and then clearly the mind is scrambled after yesterday's performance.
I'm a humble man. What can I say? But we're back with the podcast. Yesterday was a tough one to take.
Yep.
It really was. And we kind of touched on in last week's podcast. I think it's probably been a week and a bit actually since we did the last podcast. That we really felt Tottenham were there for the taking. Dan especially feeling optimistic, and for large portions of the game, mainly the first half, I thought we outplayed them, Dan, and yeah, I mean, opening the scoring with an Alderweireld own goal probably summed up our luck really in the first half, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And Anwar does a lot with what is very little, really. You know, he receives this pass from Pepe Reina, and it's a great ball, to be fair, but Ben Davies is all over him. He does really well to turn him, get down the byline. I think that there's just a little deflection on the cross. But it makes it really tricky, especially in those conditions, which was obviously so bad on the day. Made it difficult for Alderweireld, and Samatta's obviously causing him problems. He's pressing him from behind, and forces the error. But we've seen that Spurs back four, and Hugo Lloris, who I didn't think was particularly convincing at points yesterday either. There's been mistakes in that back four all season. And it just kind of shows if you make it difficult for them, and we use that counter-attacking threat, which we have in Anwar, because in those situations, one-on-one with the defender, you do fancy him a lot of the times.
Definitely.
And that really what summed up what Anwar hasn't been doing for a few games, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he's the amount of times we've said on this podcast how inconsistent he is, and how if only he could have like a West Brom away type performance every week.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's the reason why he's not an Ajax player and he's actually at Aston Villa. But no, he did really well. I thought he had a really good game, and I think we'll touch on it a bit later, but I think the substitution was at the wrong time, and it was
absolutely.
most definitely the wrong player, because Anwar was really involved in this game, and I think it probably helped that this was one of Ben Davies' first games in a long time. I think if Tanganga had played there, it would have been a bit of a different game. Certainly much more of a physical matchup between the two. But no, Anwar was putting balls in the box like there was no tomorrow, and Samatta popping up, coming, running in front and behind, winning headers. I thought Samatta had a really, really good game.
Yeah, he looks really lively, mate. I'm a big fan of what he brings to the team, and doesn't it make a difference? We saw in obviously those few weeks where we were playing out without a true number 9. Just his movement and his energy that he brings to the game, and that he injects in that front line, because he's obviously probably the most mobile forward that we've seen this season. So he brings a completely different element to this side, which we hadn't seen until that point. And just the energy that he brings, I've got a really good feeling about Sam McGoll. And he obviously, when he first trained, he said and was quite open about the fact that he'd been struggling with the pace, and that it was different, obviously, to what he was used to back in Belgium. And if he's still acclimatising, which I imagine that he is, it's only been a few games now, by the time he's fully up to speed, I think he could score some really important goals for us this season.
Definitely. I think, to be honest, he's already acclimatising pretty well. I think he had Alderweireld on toast from a lot of the first half, and gave quite a few difficult battles with Davinson Sanchez as well, who is no mug really. He's a very good, quick and strong defender, and he held his own, especially considering Sanchez has probably got 5 or 6 inches on him in height. Sam McGoll was not afraid to jump up and try and challenge him for headers, or go to outstrength him or whatever. At times I felt, though, as well as I thought we played in the first half, that there was times where we could have maybe got Samatta involved in the game a lot more, especially in the second half. Sometimes it's as if we're still playing without that striker. I mean, the striker's the focal point of the team, so it makes sense to play up to him. And we didn't do that as much, especially in the second half. But I think, as I kind of touched on, El Ghazi had a fantastic game. Again, Jack played really well, obviously getting an assist in for Engel's goal. But it was a bit of a calamity of errors for defenders on both sides, really, weren't it, Dan?
Yeah, mate. Dan, mate, I can't believe how many times we're going to sit here and do this podcast and talk about Villa conceding from a set piece again. You know, but Bournemouth was just an absolute collapse, and yet again they're our downfall. Yeah, I was looking into it this morning. So that's our 14th goal we've conceded this season from a set piece, which is 30% of all the goals we've conceded. And can you imagine where we'd be if we cut out even just, you know, kind of 5 or 6 of those?
Yeah.
You know, that's almost a third of the entire goals that have gone past our defence this season have come from set pieces. And it was a good finish. I'm going to take nothing away from that. And you know, when I saw it, my first reaction was to kind of just appreciate what was a great strike from Alderweireld. But it kind of, the ball comes in and it goes over Targett's head. It then kind of smacks Drinkwater in the face, flicks off Matt Targett's heel, and then is volleyed in by Alderweireld. So yes, it's unlucky. And you know, it's not as if there's someone that's just been completely unmarked. It is quite a fortunate one, but mate, we've had this conversation before, and these are the things that and I don't want to sound like, you know, that what those are very same people that we were criticising on the last podcast about the winter break. But when you kind of see John Terry and he's off skiing and in the Alps and stuff like this, and we're still making these continual errors, it is a bit frustrating that someone of his ilk still hasn't been able to wipe those out, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean it's not only just said between us two and you know the 40,000 who go and watch the games at Villa Park every week. I mean, even Martin Keown was mentioning it on Match of the Day last night. You know, John Terry, there's no way he would have allowed such a high line, which led to the third goal, which we'll touch on later. So you know, if it's even making it to the mainstream now. We've been better than scorelines have reflected, and I think that was especially obvious in yesterday's
I think both the games against Spurs this season, you can make that case.
I mean, when with a player like Harry Kane, you know, he can always change a game, and it was one of them ones where you kind of take it on the chin. I think the first game especially, but it's an infuriating one because we looked very good, especially for our first game, and against Spurs. I mean, Spurs have not been that good this whole season.
No.
With Pochettino, with Mourinho. They've had their moments against Man City, you know, in performances like that. But in a game where I think we touched on in the preview, we expected to let Spurs have a lot of the ball. It was a bit more even, and that's probably why we had a relatively high scoring game.
Yep.
I'd feel. I honestly thought going into this game we were going to probably have about 30% possession. Now I've not got the possession stats with me to hand, but it was
very
probably,
even actually.
It was probably about 50-50.
Yeah.
And there were definitely spells during the game where it was just counter attack after counter attack. You know, towards the end of the first half and definitely in the second half. And for once we actually came out from half time and actually. It seemed like the message came across to the players, didn't it?
Yeah.
We came out, we were fighting and raring to go, and we managed to get the equaliser, which, despite the result, is quite big, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a big result for Engels coming up at well, what you thought was he'd kind of made amends. Obviously, there was the penalty which you know he gave away, and then he heads in that goal, and you think, you know, there he is. He's gone from 0 to hero. Managed to put himself back down to 0 again later on in the game, bless him. But it was just on a plate, wasn't it? And I think you've got to give such kudos for Jack Grealish, because although Engels is the one that's leapt in and actually put it in the net, Grealish gives him no other option but to head that in. It is you know, as textbook a corner as you will see, right on the 6-yard box. You know, Engels won't score an easier header than that for a long time. But yeah, it was a good moment for him, and obviously because we don't score too many headers,
no.
And so it's a rarity, and you can't help but feel when you're seeing the size of Engels. I mean, what is he, 6'4", something like that? I mean, Mings is even taller than that. That we don't see this more often because you know, for a team where we are that have struggled to score goals this season, you'd think with such an aerial presence as we do have in this team, especially when Wesley was playing, that we haven't seen more of this.
Especially with the amount of headed goals we scored last season. I know Tammy probably played a part in that as well, but I believe we were probably amongst the top 4 out of all the leagues in terms of headed goals, which is mad because, I mean, you wouldn't associate that with us, with how we play, but saying that, there is a lot of crosses into the box. maybe it's to do with who's in the middle, you know, in terms of Wesley or whatever, because Wesley wasn't the best with his head. But I mean, Samagol may have even got himself a header if Alderweireld didn't knock that in. But no, it was good to see a set piece goal, especially because, you know, we had so many corners, mate, and it was about time, you know, we actually had to put one away. I think we had sort of 3 in consecutive order, but you know, it was good to see that. I think we should talk about the penalty.
Yeah.
From where I was sat, obviously at the top of the north stand, it was. I mean, I thought it was a brilliant challenge. I was up. I was clapping. Seeing it back afterwards, though, it makes you think again, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And Dean called it farcical. I think was his words. And I mean, I'm sorry, Dean, but I think you're reaching a little bit on that one.
Farcical.
Yeah, there you go. That's why he's here all week, guys.
Unfortunately.
But no, it's a penalty, mate. This is, you know, it's as you said, it looked like such a good challenge at first, and then it went to VAR, and I was kind of giving it, you know, it's just one of those routine checks. I mean, we'll see the corner, but
they took a long time reviewing it, though, didn't they, mate? It really long time.
It did, and it's a tough one because obviously Bergwijn kind of kicks the ball against Engels after Engels has made the initial contact, and so the ball kind of changes direction, which at first glance is obviously what made it look like a fair tackle, but no, it was a penalty. Strange run up by Son, wasn't it?
It was, yeah.
When I was watching it, there was a run up, and you kind of knew that it wasn't going to be the best penalty. It was a really strange run up, great save by Reina, but that whole kind of section of play just seemed to sum of our season, didn't it?
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
I mean, again, it's a set play that we've conceded, and when you've got a defender who is as slow as Engels, it's not a surprise that he's going to give away a penalty in a one-on-one situation against someone who's as quick and as skillful as Bergwijn. But it's the follow-up. I mean, as you say, Son didn't look like scoring, and with Pepe Reina in goal, you know, he's going to save more penalties than not. So sort of watching it, I weren't really too nervous. I was more annoyed at the VAR decision. Again, I didn't want to be like chanting against VAR because we didn't get to see it. And from what I saw, I thought it was a good challenge. But obviously, if it was a penalty, it's a penalty. You can't really argue with that. And I know VAR's got it wrong a few times, but it did come across my mind that this is Bjorn Engels, not Tyrone Mings, Courtney Hawes or Ezri Konsa, someone who's a bit quicker. But I mean, why do you have to be so switched off, Villa players, on the follow-up? You should always anticipate that. Sunday League, every time a penalty was given away, you're always running with them. Yeah. You just do it. You whether you're the attacking team or the defending team, because you're ready to either score the rebound or clear it. It's basic.
It is, and if you watch it kind of slowly, it's Gilbert that's running in, and obviously Son's got the advantage because obviously, you know, he's closer than a lot of the other players. But you can watch Gilbert, and when you watch it in slow mo, there's a brief split second where he thinks Reina's going to get to it, and so he's kind of, his left foot's going in, I think, to clear it, and he kind of just pulls it away and hesitates for a moment as Reina dives in because he thinks he's going to get there, and that's what's allowed Son to finish the chance. And shame really. And you know, it's one of those where Gilbert's done everything right. You know, had he just continued with what he was, you know, originally planning on doing, he would have cleared that ball, I think. But it's just the hesitation. I didn't think he wanted to kick a chunk out of Pepe Reina, and Reina's reaction was brilliant. Wasn't it? Absolutely. You know, that really does sum up our season, that whole event. A little factoid actually on that first half. So Toby Alderweireld is the first player since Fabian Delph in that game against West Brom at Villa Park to score an own goal, to score for and against the team in the same half in the Premier League.
Isn't it?
They are. It was one where he absolutely spanks it off the crossbar. Do you remember that the underside of the bar in front of the North? He scored that own goal just a few minutes before. So there you go. How about that?
You've written yourself in folklore.
What can I say?
Honestly, I mean, I want to try and be positive on this podcast, Nan. Not for the sake of it, you know, because we're not like that. We've just sat here complaining for a good 15 minutes. But Pepe Reina, man. I mean, he's made a few mistakes. But
my God.
10 years ago, if we'd have sat down here, which we wouldn't have because we didn't know each other, and you'd have said Pepe Reina is going to play for Aston Villa one day, I just wouldn't have believed you.
He's so good.
Yeah.
Like, man, that guy plays in goal. Like, I'm convinced he's one of the best ball players at the club, mate, without a shadow of a doubt.
How many attacks does he start from that throw?
Oh, mate, the way he just kind of saunters out of his box and just plays as if he's this kind of Spanish centrocampista midfielder, and it just he pings these passes, and there's the little balls, and he even, I think, can't remember who it was, I think it was himself, drink water and target in the first half, and orchestrating those little triangles. And I thought, God, if he's doing that with those two players, then he really is world class.
This is how Spain won the World Cup.
He is unbelievable. And yeah, he conceded 3 goals yesterday, but his match rating from who scored was exactly the same as Heung-min Son's. Who obviously scored 8. He had an absolute blinder. There was one save, especially in the second half, from Lo Celso.
Yeah.
Which I thought I was really worried about as soon as he hit that, and he just made it look so easy. You know, he never spilled. I mean, I say this actually after I criticised him against Bournemouth for one of their goals, but I mean, when he's having to deal with as much as he does, do you know what I mean? That's what I mean. You can allow it. But no, he was great, and as you said, if we're warranting good performances, there was a brief kind of 10 minutes in the first half where we really saw what I was expecting from Douglas Luiz.
Yeah,
he was getting on the ball and really dictating things, and there was the little ball rolls and there was the flair, and then it kind of faded away and it wasn't there for the whole game. But it was exactly what, when we signed Douglas Luiz, I was expecting, playing like a Brazilian.
This isn't La Liga, but I mean, Douglas, as soon as we conceded, Douglas started to take less risks. And a lot of his play was sort of sideways and backwards, and the fans were getting on his back quite a bit, and I think that actually shied him away from wanting to get on the ball. He's a phenomenal player, but I mean, we haven't really been seeing the ball since that Brighton away, that assist to Jack. Douglas has been a bit quiet, and I think we do need to mention that, but I think he just kind of he came within himself, because we know he's got the ability, we know he can do it, but I also think what plays a part in Douglas Luiz's sort of I don't really know how to describe it, but was Danny Drinkwater's performance.
Oh right, yeah, man. Oh, wow, we've got to talk about this.
We've got to talk about Danny Drinkwater.
He give me a moment. Right, let me find this. I think there was this, and I screenshotted it so I could read this out. So, Danny Drinkwater. This is a tweet I saw this morning from Martin Lawrence. So,
shout out to Martin Lawrence.
Danny Drinkwater has made 5 tackles in 4 Premier League appearances. So he's made 5 tackles in 4 games. He's been dribbled past 16 times. Right, and just to give that some context, Conor Hourihane has been dribbled past 8 times in 16 appearances. So Danny Drinkwater looks so far off the pace at the moment. Chelsea paid more for him than they did N'Golo Kante.
Which is crazy. I mean, that English premium, isn't it?
Ludicrous. And I don't want to. I never like to slander Villa players. I always like and try and see the best in them. I'm not naive, but you always look for what's good in a player over what's bad sometimes. Especially with this club, mate. If you didn't, you'd go mad. But Danny Drinkwater is. We can't afford to play him, mate. No. That midfield, just whoever the partner is. We've seen him with Nakamba, we've seen him with Luiz now, and there's no there's no resolution. There's no solidarity in the midfield, is there?
No, the issue is, I think Drinkwater he's quite clearly past it. But there were and as poor as I did think he was, there were moments, especially in the first half, he played a few wonderful balls over the top to who he assumed Jamie Vardy was probably running onto. That ball. Yeah. Which is what you want to see, especially when you've got a pacey forward in Samatta. And there was one lovely reactionary pass that he did to Jack out on the wing, and it was marvellous. Not Nakamba, but Drinkwater. But there was a few there was a few instances, I mean, like there was a few times he did sort of break up the play, but every time he gets on the ball, it's like he has to set himself twice. He's always eager and wants to get on the ball, but then as soon as he has the ball, he doesn't really know what to do with it, and that is a problem, especially when you're playing in a two, and especially when your partner's Douglas Luiz, who is more often than not going to be found up the pitch, looking to play forwards, which he didn't do as much. But Drinkwater, out of the two, Drinkwater's the one who stays back. He should be the more defensive-minded, and for him to be dribbled past that many times is absolutely criminal.
Well, yeah, this is one of the things, and I think you put that tweet out looking for people's thoughts on the game and stuff like that, and the first one that came through was about Danny Drinkwater, and you are disappointed because it's it's there, and as you said, there were some really good passes in the first half, and I actually thought in that first half we actually saw the best of both Drinkwater and Luiz at points, and what that midfield could be working at full pelt. It was just a bit frustrating in that sense, but there's not enough defensive weight in that midfield, but Spurs' midfield was the same. It were like that.
Look at the players in there. You're talking Harry Winks and Eric Dyer. These guys are England internationals. That's a joke.
Well, Dele Alli, I thought. I was so disappointed with yesterday. I think I've finally started to see a few people now like Grealish. I think people are starting to realise it's no longer a Grealish-Maddison debate. I think people are starting to realise that Grealish maybe right now is England's best player.
I think he is. We are truly watching a world-class talent at Villa Park. And it gets me sad thinking that performances like this could result in a possible relegation, and I think that's the only way Jack Grealish leaves the club.
Mm-hmm. I agree as well.
Because if we stay up, there's why would he leave? When you look at the sort of the all-time Villa greats, your Gary Shaws, people like that, won the European Cup. Jack Grealish is better than every single one.
Yeah,
and he will be even better. I'm getting emotional thinking about it, mate.
Yeah, it's tough, man. But it really is. He's definitely England's best performing player right now. I'm not gonna.
I don't even think Jadon Sancho is better than him.
He's playing so well, and I think certainly him and Sancho. When you look at it, they're mercurial talents, and I fundamentally believe that if Grealish was playing in that Borussia Dortmund side in the Bundesliga, would he not have numbers like that? We're looking at 7 goals, 6 assists in the Premier League this season, and I think Sancho's in double figures for both. And we've all seen the Bundesliga, and there's a lot more space. Teams play a lot of a higher line. I mean, Erling Haaland's gone over there and absolutely ripped it up, and teams continue to camp on the halfway line and watch those balls fly over their heads. And if you put Grealish in that league, I think he'd be putting up numbers that are just as good, if not close to what Jadon Sancho is doing. He is fantastic, mate, and we just got to appreciate this, man. Every second that we can, because if we do go down, We've had some tough players leave Villa. We've had some transfers in the past that have been hard to stomach, but that would top the lot. And I don't think we'd ever be tops, man, having to watch Grealish playing another, especially if he goes to another English team. Yeah, watching that on a regular basis.
For me, Jack Grealish at the moment can walk into any team in the world, and I mean that. Wherever he goes, I think he makes that team better. Mm-hmm. I'm talking Real Madrid, I'm talking Barcelona, I'm talking Liverpool, Man City. Anyway, the man is phenomenal.
That's a distinction.
He really is. And back onto the topic of the midfield, because we can sit here and cry about Grealish all day, potentially leaving. Marvellous Nakamba, when he came on, it was a spot-on substitution, and it was the only one out of the 3 that I would have made. When we were chasing, because I believe it was 2-2 at this point, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we were chasing the game, and it just makes sense to have someone in the midfield who can actually break up the play. And when we were applying as much pressure as we were on Tottenham, I've said this many times before, Nakamba, in the final third, will always win the ball back. And he did that. He did exactly that, and there was probably about a 10-minute spell where we were camped in their third, and every time they cleared the ball away, Marvelous was there. Bam, back out to the wings. Why wasn't he starting?
Yeah, it's a weird one because the lack of weight in that midfield in Drinkwater and Louise is obvious. Yeah. Blatant, it's a very technical midfield, but it's the first observation you make upon seeing that midfield is that's lightweight. A lot is going to get through there, no, I thought this was a game for Louise and Nakamba as the two, and yeah, it's a strange one, and yeah, Nakamba came on, played really well. Had a good impact upon the game. Didn't really put a foot wrong, to be honest with you. Did everything that was asked of him. And yeah, it was a shame. I don't know. In terms of the other substitutions, you were right. Baston, we can't really judge. I mean, what did he get? Like 8 minutes, 9 minutes, or something like that. So
the first thing he did was head the ball to a Spurs player.
Yeah, didn't exactly do a lot right in that time, but I'm not going to judge a player off 8 minutes. We'll wait a little bit more. And so and Trezeguet is a player that, to be honest with you, I don't think. It's a really weird one with Trez, isn't it? Because I don't think he's really found his place in the team. I don't think he really has a clear role. We play him off the left, we play him off the right. It's kind of blurred now as to which side he actually, kind of likes to play on. He scored some really important goals for us this season. You think Liverpool, Leicester, got one at Wolves. I know that wasn't exactly as important at the time, but has come up quite big in some moments, but just hasn't really found his place in that side, has he really?
No, I think...
Hard to gauge.
Yeah, he's got the attributes to be... to become a Premier League footballer. He's very quick, he's skillful. I think it just comes down to the coaching, to be perfectly honest. And it's kind of hard to... I mean, you can't bring someone in from a foreign league where... let's be honest, it was just the Trezeguet show every time, wasn't it? He's just sort of scooping in and out and just fizzing passes long because he can, but he can't at Villa because we play a certain way, and as well he's just not really in the team that much. How can you expect someone who's fresh to the league to just come in and rip it up off the bench? And I mean, to be fair to him, he's done very well. And I like to go back to Arsenal away. I thought Trezeguet. That was the best we've ever seen of him.
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of, without getting a goal or an assist, we saw him breaking away with pace. He wasn't scared to take on players, skill in past players as well. And I don't know, it's a difficult one. I think it was a risk really, that transfer, wasn't it? Someone who's quick from a foreign league, he can either be like a Mo Salah from his country, or he can turn out to be. Just another quick player with no end product, much like Adama was when he first came. Yeah. But again, that comes down to coaching as to what he's become.
Very good point, mate. Yeah, it's a shame, and it was one at the time. It was I don't want to play Mystic Meg, but at the time it kind of felt like a weird one because we'd actually, if you've been tuning into the World Cups and stuff like that and the AFCON. Trezeguet was becoming quite a household name. I certainly knew of him before he came to Villa. Was well aware of what he's about. We'd seen a lot of him at the World Cup, at the AFCON, and stuff like that. And it was, he when he's given kind of free roam of a team like we saw. I mean, do you remember when he first signed and someone put all his goals together?
Yeah,
from last season,
screamers,
unbelievable stuff. It's like prime Ronaldinho, just absolutely tearing it up. Like there's rainbow flicks. He's honestly he's playing like there's no rules, and we just haven't seen that. And I think it comes. He's again like Anwar, a player that relies so much on confidence. In their games, I think if you've both got those players with mojo, feeling every time they step on the pitch that they're the man, and they can beat any defender one-on-one and stuff like that, then we see two completely different players, and I think two that would actually complement each other very well. If they're playing at full pelt, but we haven't seen that, and so it was a shame, and that substitution didn't work out, and as I don't know about you, mate, but as it came towards the end of the game. Although we were actually playing pretty well and I felt that we were coping all right, it was just kind of some ominous feeling that something was coming, mate. And we've seen it so many times with Villa this season.
Always. I mean, when you make a substitution like that, it kind of makes sense at the time. Get someone on with fresh legs, maybe. But Anwar didn't need bringing off. This was probably one of his best games this season. And I think, he's often scapegoated, but I feel like Anwar's output, although I believe it could be better because there's been chances that he has missed, open goals, but it is very good, especially for a player who, let's not forget, cost us around €4 million.
Yeah.
You very much get what you pay for in the Premier League. I mean, you've just got to look at $4 million for Anwar, but you look at, I don't know, even like Salah cost 30 million, and that, I guess that seemed like a lot at the time as well. Yeah. Most people were going, well, why would you pay 30 million for someone who's been playing for Roman, who's a Chelsea reject? But it was a lot of money. It was just as these fees were getting sort of inflated. I'm trying to hold myself out for Trez, because I remember when we signed him, a guy who I was working with in the summer was Egyptian, shout out to Ahmed, said that he's a fantastic player. And he'd met him a few times back in Egypt, apparently, and Mo Salah was flexing on me like there was no tomorrow, says he knew like all of the Egypt players. But he also believed that Al Mohammadi was one of the best right backs in the world. So take that with a grain of salt. But Trezeguet is well liked from within Egypt and Turkey with the Transport, I believe he came from. But yeah, as you're saying, sort of when you're chasing a game like that, it never feels good, and it's such a cliche to be like, oh, it's classic Villa. It's just classic football, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially when you've and it is classic Villa, I guess, in when that first half of football was probably our best 45 minutes of the whole season.
Yeah.
For us,
it was
to lose. I'm actually not that surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always against the top sides, mate. It's always against the top sides. We hold our own. And then, against Tottenham early on in the season, made a very good account for ourselves today. Held our own against Liverpool. Should have beaten Arsenal. Could have beaten Chelsea. Man City, we won't go there. But, for us to lose to Southampton and Bournemouth, it's criminal.
Yeah, mate.
It's criminal.
God, mate, we have such a unique ability to just self-implode all the time. Like Engels, man.
We'll talk about Engels now. We'll talk about that mistake.
Just put your foot through it, please. Just anywhere. Doesn't matter where that ball goes. As long as it doesn't go backwards. That ball goes forwards in any direction. Just put it into Rosé and just clear that. It's a nasty ball, and he tries to kind of take it with his studs. I imagine he didn't sleep very much last night, just playing that through in his mind. But so. And obviously Pepe Reina had a good game, and I was just willing him on, just praying that he could perform yet another heroic. But it was you rolled it past him, and in that moment, mate.
It was only 10 minutes before that Reina was in a similar situation, and his experience really showed with how he held his line very well. Came out when he needed to, made the save, but. Heung-min Son is a world-class talent. Mm-hmm. He really is, and it's a really hard one to take. But players like that, they can find space, and they're going to score. And Son's proved that at most levels. It's certainly a tough one to take. I don't think there's much Reina can do about that. He did his very best. What's frustrating about that sort of passage, though, again, we didn't. I admire Dean's sort of, we're going to always go and attack, but his philosophy's so flaccid because there's weeks where that just doesn't happen. And it had to be yesterday, where I think we would have all actually taken a point, given the performance and given the circumstances, that he suddenly decides, do you know what? We'll punt it long and we'll try and get another one, because we did it at Watford, and we did it with Norwich, and we did it with Southampton at home. Why can't Why can't? Sometimes you just have to take what is in front of you. And especially when you're putting it up long to Boyer, I don't want to disrespect Boyer. I actually had a feeling he was going to come on and score, not within 8 minutes. I thought he would have got a bit of a longer run. I felt as well we should have probably gone 2 up top to really put the pressure on. If you're going to do that with 30 minutes to go, if you're going to take El Ghazi off or whoever, put Boyer up front with Samatta, because we played better football against Bournemouth with 2 up front.
Yeah, mate, you're absolutely right. Dean, he's killing me at the moment, man. Like, I would it be so outrageous for us, like, just to go 2 up top, just to see how it works? It works against Bournemouth. Just try it again. I, for one, actually think that Borja and Ali would complement each other pretty well, based on the 8 minutes that I've seen of Borja Baston. That it's like that classic striker pairing of little and large. You've got the hold-up striker and a striker that plays on the shoulder. I think that would work, and it was frustrating that we didn't get to see that. But I think Dean.
It's a tough one, isn't it, mate? I mean, we're kind of sat here doing this, and it's actually been a really difficult podcast to record.
Yeah, man, I'm losing my. Really starting to question things with Dean now, mate, and I'm not. No one wants Dean Smith to succeed more than me, but he's getting a lot of sympathy right now that Remy Gard wouldn't have gotten, or anything like that. I think if they're not a Villa fan, I think Dean Smith is still getting the Dean's my manager. I'll stick with him, and I fully support that. I think it's good that we've got that culture at the club.
Yeah.
But it's saving him at the moment. It is, and not many questions and not enough questions are being asked of him as to why the substitutions take so long and why often they're not so good.
I mean, you can guess who's coming on each time.
Exactly, mate. I know that we don't have the deepest squad and we don't have banks of quality, and when kind of our bench yesterday was consistent of Neil and Elmo and Oyan and stuff like that. There's 3 players that you already you're not going to see, so that you're left with pretty limited resources. But man, basic game management. Like, I understand that everyone needs to adjust to the Premier League. The players, the managers, everyone at the club. There's such a shift in everything, but. Surely these types of scenarios in games, they're universal. You see them at every level, don't you? And it's just choreographed, mate. That was gonna. We've had it so many times this season, and that we still haven't learned from that, and we can't react to these changing scenarios in the game.
Yeah, and what's worrying is, as I said, the attack has genuinely been very good throughout the course of the season. It's been consistent. I didn't really expect to come up to the Premier League and score sort of 2 goals every other game. Mm-hmm. I really didn't.
No.
And I think that is a credit to Dean and the players. But considering Dean Smith was a centre half and John Terry's a centre half, the defence, it really lets you down. And the most simple way to win a game is to make sure you don't concede a goal. And it's just infuriating. And maybe we do need a bit of perspective. Tottenham were Champions League finalists while we were Championship playoff finalists. So maybe a bit of perspective is needed. It's just a difficult one. But I think there's no better place to right our wrongs than on the South Coast, Southampton away. Mm-hmm. Did you watch the Southampton-Burnley game?
I caught the highlights. I didn't watch it in full.
I've got to tell you, mate, I wish I caught the highlights because it was the most boring game I've ever watched. I've never seen 2 teams play and not want to win.
Yeah,
it was a terrible game.
To me, I've got to say.
But Danny Ings was still very dangerous. Burnley should not have won that game. They really shouldn't have.
No.
But Southampton, again, Southampton and Burnley, going into the game, they were tied on points. Burnley win, and I think that you said they're 5 points off Europe.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. And again, Southampton and Burnley are teams we were competing with literally a week ago.
Yeah.
A week ago. It's crazy. But Southampton was still very much doing their thing. Danny Ings scoring goals. Shane Long proving to be very difficult, and he's always a thorn in our side. Old Shane Long. But judging off that performance, I think we can actually go there and cause them some problems.
Yep.
But I also think they've got Danny Ings. and Shane Long and.
We haven't
Danny
performed
Ings
well on the South Coast recently, have we?
No, we haven't. But I mean, we're talking about Jack Grealish being one of England's best players at the moment. I think Danny Ings is definitely up there, mate.
Yeah, and there are two, and one player who's really gone under the radar, especially recently, who I think has been performing. You know, he hasn't got the goals to show for it, and you know, one's certainly making the headlines. But James Ward-Prowse has been playing some incredible football. You know, in since Southampton's kind of resurgence, which was started by their win at Villa Park.
Yeah,
their kind of that run of games.
Cheers,
it was
lads.
kick-started by that. But recently, one win in their last 6 in all comps. It's the pace is starting to slow a little bit now, so it's not the worst time to play them. But you know, you kind of mentioned Danny Ings, and so the Spurs game, there was more shots in that game than there had been in any other Premier League game this season,
which is crazy.
41. I think Spurs had 22 shots or something like that in the game, and if we give that to Danny Ings,
he's going to score 10.
Yeah, Spurs didn't have a recognised striker, and it showed yesterday. And if we give that to a striker that's scoring like Danny Ings is, he'll put hat-trick passes easily. Yeah. We have to tighten up in that regard, otherwise that could just quite simply be the difference in that game. But yet again, there needs to be a reaction. The lineup I think will change again. I've seen a few people thinking maybe going back to a 4 is the way to go. Do we stick with the 3 at the back? How does that one work? Hopefully we'll have Ty back.
I think he had tonsillitis, so he should. I mean, he's on antibiotics. Boy, we need him back. I honestly think, mate, if we're going to a back 4, it has to be Bjorn and Ty.
Yep.
It simply has to be. And I mean, if you listen to the podcast, you know, I love the powerhouse. I thought House had a decent game yesterday, actually. I didn't think he put a foot wrong. I know a lot of people aren't the biggest fan of Courtney, but if it's a back 4, it has to be Bjorn Engels and Tyrone Mings.
We can't say this, really.
That is where we got most of our points, mate. With a 4 at the back, and we looked very solid, and we didn't concede half as many goals as we're conceding now. I don't buy into this 3 at the back makes us look more solid bollocks. I think it's a load of rubbish. It really is. We're conceding more chances.
Places such an emphasis on those 2 midfielders as well, doesn't it? Which is really our weak point.
Exactly. But then, I feel like if we go back to a 4-3-3, I don't really know if I want Grealish on the wing in that formation. I think it suits him with the 5 at the back, being in that sort of wide position. But every time I watch him, I kind of I sit there and think, yeah, he's a winger, and then no, he's not. No. I mean, he's an inside forward.
Yeah,
really. He's been a 10, just slightly more towards the left.
Yeah, he that kind of just floating role, and when you allow him, as you know, if you played him as at the highest points in a 3, then when you just give him that creative roam of the attacking third and just really let him off his lead and go and just get on the ball and saunter into those positions in the final third, where he makes the difference. And so I think there needs to be a restructure, a little rethink tactically. I think we need to create a system whereby we give more of a role to Samatta.
Yeah.
Just generally, I think at the moment he is, bar Grealish, our most progressive attacking player. And so we need to get him more involved. And so it's not improbable, mate. It's not a game that we can sit here and write off. We both know it's a game that, you know, that there's a universe in which that plays out quite well. And Southampton are a team we can take points off. There's no doubt about that.
We've got to take points off, mate.
We need points from somewhere, mate, and it's tough after this. And we'll be sat here in a week digesting the Southampton game, talking about a trip to Wembley.
Yeah.
And we can't forget how quickly that's coming around. Kind of what a distraction that's going to be. We have to steady that ship, mate, because we can't go to Wembley playing like this.
We definitely can't. But we've always kind of turned up in the cup competitions, haven't we? Which it'd be nice if we turned up in the league. I will say that. On Samatta again, I feel like Samatta really has the ability to be our Shane Long of the side. Very quick forward. obviously we saw him score against Bournemouth, had his chances against Leicester. Probably would have scored if it weren't for all the virals as well. Would have been nice to have a goal down my end at the North Stand, because we don't often get too many, and we don't really score that quick in the game as well. So
yeah,
it's nice
it's
to
rare.
see. We've not really done that since the Championship.
I scored generally.
To be honest, yes, you're not wrong. But it's a game that we've got to go into. We've got to win. If we take a point at Tottenham, maybe you take a point at Southampton, but we're at a stage now where it's 3 points or nothing. And I mean, looking at how the league is, I think, and I'm being optimistic here, I think 35 points has you safe.
Yeah.
Because of how tight it is. I mean, the fact that we're talking about Southampton and Burnley for Europe is crazy, isn't it? Yeah,
well, that's a conversation altogether entirely, what could have been this season. But yeah, mate, we just got to, on that very note, we could have been one of those teams if we just cut those errors out, cut those mistakes out. And if we do that against Southampton, with the way that we played at points against Spurs, I think there's real reason to be hopeful. But Villa have got to show a resilience that we haven't really seen this season to go and play in that game. We know it's there. Hopefully we get the lineup right and it's our day, but it's certainly going to be a tough one, mate.
It is, mate. I think that's probably a good place to end the podcast on. It's been
Absolutely.
A very hard 45 minutes trying to digest the Tottenham game. I'd not really give it much thought before this.
No.
But thanks for coming, Dan.
No,
and shout out to Mike.
Always love it. Yeah, absolutely.
Shout out to Mike for setting up again. The last podcast did really well. I don't know whether it's because we had sort of more time for it to be viewed, but I think it's sort of approaching that 300 mark, which is good.
Nice.
So yeah, if you guys enjoyed the podcast, hit the like button, comment your thoughts below. We always love to see what you guys have to say
for sure
about the podcast in the comments. It really does make our day and help us want to do this. And after performances like that,
we need it, mate. We need it, don't we? Yeah, for sure.
So words of encouragement would be nice. And also, don't forget, if we reach 2,000 subscribers before the end of the season, me and Dan will be giving away a Samatta shirt.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure, that's a promise.
It's not out of the window, is it?
No, absolutely. It's still there.
And
still there.
Samagol, I've got a feeling he's going to be sort of a late season hero. He's going to score some important goals. You're going to want to don him on the back of your shirt.
Absolutely. Get him before the mad rush.
Of course. Any final words from yourself, Dan?
No, mate. I like the positivity, I have to say. And as I said, I was talking about that culture whereby we're sticking by Dean and... we got to keep that going.
Yeah, I mean, Dan is not Smith out. Let's be clear.
No,
don't hound him in the comments.
But yeah, let's keep the positivity going. We know we'll take a great following down to Southampton, and hopefully we're sat here in a week with a smile on our face, mate. Let's say that. Yeah, for sure.
Thanks for watching, guys. Up the Villa.
Chester's essential to fulfilling this got potential. It's a main man, a hero. He's the main leader of the gang. Chester.